Hey guys, this is Shannon with Nearly Organic Noshing, and it is about 9 o'clock at night on a Thursday night, and I'm about to make a whole bunch of cookies. My mom called me earlier, and they're supposed to be going out of town for a little while, and my dad requested cookies for the trip. And I'm not going to tell my dad no. So I am making cookies tonight, and Chris had family that came into town tonight from out of state, so we're going to have the family over here at the house a lot over the next few days. So I figured, you know what? I'll make a lot of cookies, and that will help cover some desserts for the next few days. So if I can get through it tonight, I will be making absolutely oatmeal raisin because those are my dad's favorite, and he absolutely loves my oatmeal raisin cookies. Some chocolate chip, some ginger snap, or some like molasses ginger cookies, and some snickerdoodles. Those are my mom's favorite, and they're going to be meeting up with other family out of state. So I figured, you know what? I will just make a whole bunch of cookies and send some with them and keep some here and make both sides of the family happy. So let me flip the camera. I will show you my oatmeal raisin cookie recipe. I have been making this recipe for years. It was on the lid of, I want to say, an oatmeal box. I want to say that's where it came from, but they're called Vanishing Oatmeal Raisin Cookies. And like I said, I have been making these for years, and everybody loves them. They're just like their favorite oatmeal raisin cookies. So let me flip it around and I'll give you the list of ingredients. Okay, so this is the oatmeal raisin cookie recipe. You need 1 cup of melted butter, which I have my butter here. You're gonna need 1 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of white sugar, 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon salt, 3 cups of oatmeal, and 1 cup of raisins. You can also add nuts or chocolate chips into this recipe. I'm just keeping it basic. And I have a few of my ingredients laid out here. This is homemade vanilla extract, and the baking soda. Salt is in the top of this. But since I'm doing so much baking, I went ahead and just grabbed my buckets out of the pantry so that I'm not gonna have to deplete my small containers in the kitchen. And so I'm gonna be scooping all of these other ingredients from my large bucket. So I have sugar, flour, oatmeal, and then brown sugar. I pulled these chocolate chips out of my pantry. I had them in a Ziploc. They have a recipe on the back for chocolate chip cookies. Never made this. I think I'm going to make this. I have made the snickerdoodle recipe before, but I did pull this Best Chewy Molasses Cookies ingredients. Just printed it offline, and I'm going to try that one. But first, let's get started with the oatmeal raisin, and then I'll go over the ingredients for all of the other cookie recipes as we get to them. Okay guys, I have all of my wet ingredients right here laid out, and I'm going to go ahead and start blending them together. So I have my 2 cups of melted butter, 1 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of white sugar, 2 eggs, and my 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And I'm just going to get this stirred together real well, and then I will mix together dry. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mix my dry ingredients. Now, When I do that, I like running it through a sieve just because to make sure there are no lumps or anything left. So here is my 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, my 1 teaspoon of baking soda, one teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And see, look at all the lumps that were left of like baking soda and stuff. You don't want to bite into that in a cookie. So I just push it through, so now there's no lumps, and I will add this into my wet mixture. Almost forgot my spatula. With it wedged underneath here, I have to have this to get it in. When we put our cabinets in, it just barely fits under this cabinet. So I don't pull it in and out very much. I just do it like this. And I'll blend and scrape down the sides a couple of times to make sure it's all incorporated in together. Okay, so I have blended this real well. You don't see any flour in there. And I have 3 cups of oatmeal here and 1 cup of raisins here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and blend this in by hand. I don't do the oatmeal and raisins with the blender. I think it just beats them up a little bit too much. And my oven is preheated, and I already have baking sheets lined with parchment paper. So as soon as I get all these onto the baking sheets and in the oven, I can start on the next batch of cookies. Now I just have to get these blended well and on a cookie pan. Okay guys, there are 48 cookies here. My oven is set to 350, and I'm gonna go ahead and pop these in 10 to 12 minutes. I tend to let them cook just a touch longer because my dad likes them crispy on the edges, as do most of us. We don't like them super soft. We like them a little bit crispy. But if you like them soft, 10 minutes. I do it a little over 12 just because that's a preference. So I'm gonna get these going and get started on the next batch of cookies. And I believe I am vetoing the molasses ginger one. I may sub it for something else. I forgot the dough has to rest for 2 hours in the fridge, and yeah, that's not happening tonight. So let me get the other couple batches going and we'll see about doing a 4th. Okay, so the next recipe I'm gonna do is this chocolate chip cookie recipe. Now, this is off of the Aldi's Baker's Corner dark chocolate chip, their brand of chocolate chips. So it calls for 2 sticks of unsalted butter, which I will be using salted because that's what I have, and I'll just cut back on the salt in the recipe. That's just what I usually do. 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 2 eggs, a teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon vanilla, 2 cups of flour, 1.5 cups of the chocolate chips. Super simple. So it says bake at 375 for 12 to 15 minutes. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and get the wet ingredients together and the dry. All right, here we go on the chocolate chip cookies. We have our 2 sticks of melted butter going in. 1/2 cup of white sugar, 1/2 cup of brown, 2 eggs. And I know this probably looks a little bit awkward under here like this, but when we redid our countertops, it just barely fits under here. So it's hard to move in and out, and it's worth not having to store this thing and lug it out from under a cabinet to deal with the awkwardness of how this is under here. So I'm just gonna blend all this together and then work on the dry ingredients. Oh, I almost forgot, they didn't have it with all the wet ingredients, but 1 teaspoon vanilla gets added into the wet. Oh, and there is my timer for the cookies. Okay, I just peeked at the cookies. I'm gonna let them go just a little bit more. And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and finish getting the dry ingredients here. So it's 2 cups of all-purpose flour. There's 1, 2, 1 teaspoon of baking soda. There's some lumps in there, knock those down some. And it calls for a teaspoon of salt, but I'm probably gonna do about half. Someone's in here trying to steal my cookies off the pan before I even get them on the cooling rack.
Love your cookies.
I know you love my cookies. So these just came out of the oven. These cooked for like 15 minutes, and you can see how brown they are. 10 to 12, I just don't think is quite enough personally. So I'm gonna move these over to, I guess something has the dogs all stirred up. I'm gonna get these over onto the cooling racks and then finish mixing the dry ingredients because I just set them off to the side right now to get these out. Okay guys, now I have the dry ingredients. I'm just gonna sift these together and add them into the wet ingredients. All right, so I have it all blended, and I have 1.5 cups of the chocolate chips. I'm gonna get those added in and them on the baking pans. All right, this batch made 36 cookies, and these morsels are very large. They're much larger than just regular chocolate chips. So I'm gonna get these in the oven for approximately 12 minutes until they're golden brown. Okay, once again, we are on to the snickerdoodles. And I have 2 sticks of butter. 2 eggs, 1.5 cups of white sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla. Cream all this together. We're moving on to the dry ingredients for the snickerdoodles. It calls for 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. There are 2 and 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and then a teaspoon of baking soda. I'm gonna double check this. 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar. 1. And 2. And a half a teaspoon of salt. Oop. And there is my timer. Blend these together, and then I could set this to the side and get the cookies out of the oven. Okay guys, so the snickerdoodles are a little bit different. If you look at the dough, it's a thicker dough. So what we're gonna do is scoop it out by the spoonful. Gonna take it, roll it into a ball, and then we're just gonna roll it in the cinnamon and sugar till it's well coated and put it on the pan. And we're gonna do that with all of them. This is one of my mom's all-time favorite cookies. Okay, it made almost 4 dozen cookies, and I'm getting ready to put these in the oven and cook 8 to 10 minutes until lightly golden brown. Okay guys, what I decided on was peanut butter cookies. My dad absolutely loves peanut butter cookies. So what I have is 3/4 cup of peanut butter, 1/2 cup of melted butter, 1/4 cup of white sugar, 3/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1.5 cups of flour, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then we're just gonna lightly sprinkle the top with some raw sugar once we get them pressed out. So I'm going to go ahead and blend the butter, sugars, vanilla, egg, peanut butter, all of my wet ingredients together. Then I'll do my dry, and I just took the snickerdoodles out of the oven. So I'm going to get those on a cooling rack, and then I'll start blending. All right guys, it is time for the peanut butter to start mixing. So I have my peanut butter here. This was 3/4 of a cup of peanut butter. With 1 stick of butter, melted. 1 egg. 1 teaspoon of vanilla. 1/4 cup of white sugar, which I'm making a mess, and 3/4 cup of brown. All right, let's start blending. All right, I have all the wet stuff blended. So we have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And have to just double check. 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And just sift it all together, and I'm gonna add it into my wet. Okay guys, so I have my peanut butter dough here. As you can see, this is a much thicker dough than any of the other stuff we've dealt with so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop it out and I'm going to roll it into a ball. And then I'm going to flatten it out some and just dip the top side in raw sugar and then set it down. And I'm just going to press it both directions with my fork. Make sure that you can see that, and I'll do one more. Take the dough, roll it, flatten it a little, press it in the sugar, press this way, press that way. And then I'm just gonna do the whole batch. Okay guys, so this made right at about 30 cookies. I probably could have gotten a few more if I didn't make them so thick, but I'm gonna put these in the oven for 7 to 10 minutes at 350. Okay, so there are the peanut butter cookies out of the oven, and technically I'm done with the last batch of cookies, but Chris asked that I do another batch of oatmeal raisin because he really, really likes those, and he knows I'm going to give most of them away. So I have another batch already mixed up here, and as soon as I get these oatmeal raisin cookies moved, I'm going to go ahead and get these on pans and in the oven, and then that's it. I'm done with cookies tonight, and I'll show you what they all look like as soon as I wrap this up. Okay guys, it is a little after midnight. I think it's about 12:30. My kitchen is clean. The only thing I have left to do is floors, which I may just end up doing them tomorrow. But everything is cleaned up. The last of the oatmeal raisin cookies are cooling. So this is a double batch of oatmeal raisin, and then just one of chocolate chip, one of the snickerdoodle, and one of the peanut butter. And I have my parents' anniversary gift. So these cookies will be split up partly for them, and then I'll, like I said, I'll save some for this weekend since Chris's family is in. So I'm gonna go ahead and get bags and start separating these and bagging them up, and I think I am going to call it a night. I'm tired. It has been a long, long day. Jaden is on his way home from work. He had to work super late tonight, and I'm going to put some of these warm oatmeal raisin cookies on a plate for him with a glass of milk. I'm sure he is going to want that as a midnight snack. Chris has already come in and put an absolute hurting on the first batch of oatmeal raisin cookies. So definitely needed a second batch of those. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Have a great evening.